Hello, my name is Thanh, and I'm currently an associate lecturer at the University of Northampton. I got my master's also from University of Northampton and a bachelor's degree in the University of Central Oklahoma in the USA. Since then, I've been teaching English as a language to both private and public institutions in Vietnam, and I've been working with Dr. James Underwood, who's my co-presenter today, on many projects regarding teaching, others, and also for publications. Dr. James Underwood is a principal lecturer at the University of Northampton. He's a great mentor, supervisor, and colleague of mine, and also a teacher and school leader for 19 years. He obtained his doctorate from Cambridge University. Dr. James Underwood and I will present two distinct but related peer coaching projects to highlight the theme of responding to ruptures, speaking back to power at this conference. Dr. James Underwood will be in charge of the second project, while I myself would talk more about the first one. It is called Developing Peer Coaching as a Teaching Strategy for Empowerment. The reason why we picked peer coaching as a topic to highlight speaking back to power in students is because through peer coaching, students can learn and feel more empowered from working with their partners, and this allows them to speak up to the teacher who's also the authority figure in the classroom in a more effective way and also easier for them. There are some other credited authors that were involved in co-writing the papers, but couldn't be here to present this presentation. Project 1 focused on empowering emerging women leaders. It is a course that James and I designed for young women leaders. It is originally designed within Vietnam and the UK, but managed to attract participants from 13 countries. We use Collaborate as the platform to hold online real-time workshops. We've taught this course 3 times to young women aged from 16 to 30 years old. Although this is a course that was taught many times, it is also an ongoing action research project, with each course involving data collection, reflection, and redesign process. And therefore, publications are now emerging from this process. So why and how did we design a course for young women leaders? Let's talk about the purpose first. Research from Sue and little Natalie in 2012 discovered that although women emerge as leaders in some societies more than others, they have historically been less represented than men in leadership positions within all countries. This is a sad reality because women are not any less talented than men. In fact, they have certain personalities and skills and attributes that are very suitable for certain types of leadership styles. And so the philosophy behind this course is to help women feel more empowered in becoming a leader. The purpose of the course is for participants to feel more enabled to explore their abilities in becoming a leader after identifying their own needs and future plans, and based on their own strengths and weaknesses, and as well as targeted goals. We helped develop leadership skills in them. This involved critical thinking skills for leadership, decision-making sessions, and stress coping mechanisms together with other teamwork sessions. Moving on to the design of the course. The main difficulty to overcome for James and I was designing a course for leadership for students from so many ethnic and national backgrounds. And so we decided to use coaching as teaching instead of mere lecturing. Because as you know, the course deals with newest matters regarding leadership, strengths and weaknesses, vision, goals, things like that. And so it demands a more flexible framework rather than us telling them what is the right and wrong answer. So the method of designing this course is for them to discuss with each other in breakout groups, be it small or whole class discussion group, as well as individual reflective sessions. The purpose of this is for them to come up with their own right or wrong answers for their scenarios. However, we also incorporate a concrete framework with clearly defined goals, as you can see in the infographic next to it. We incorporated personal stories with professional examples to illustrate some of the concepts that the class discussed about. Finally, I want to talk about the positive feedback to highlight the importance of having peer coaching in this course. I suggest that you now pause for a little bit to read through these two quotes from Sandra and Togo, who are the standing two outstanding participants from this course. Apparently, they highlighted the value of having a diverse group to work with and the fact that having mini groups can help them feel a lot more comfortable in discussing and thus to lead others. Indeed, by allowing for more discussions in class, in groups, in pairs, the course has managed to help these learners realize their own goals to work towards. This is something that could not have been achieved if James and I decided to include more lecturing. James will now talk about the second project.
Good morning. My name is Dr. James Underwood, and Thanh has already introduced me at the start of this presentation as a colleague of hers who has worked with her on the two projects being presented today. The theme that links these two projects is the theme of teachers' use of peer coaching. However, this paper is very different. This second project is a reflective exploration into teachers' use of peer coaching to teach specifically about sexual and social consent. It was not an action research project, but was rather a delving into the prior experiences of experienced teachers who use peer coaching as part of their repertoire. There are two main authors of this presentation today, myself and Thanh. However, the paper that informs this presentation and will be soon released by Collective Ed was written with two other authors, Dorcas Vakili and Beatrice Balfour. Dorcas Vakili was a master's student at the University of Northampton, and Beatrice Balfour was a PhD graduate of the University of Cambridge and is now a school leader in the USA. The paper that we have written together and that I am presenting in summary now explores the potential and challenges of using peer coaching as a method for empowering the young people we teach and work with. The second project, as I mentioned earlier, was not an action research project, but rather involved delving into the experiences of teachers in a shared online community via a series of conversations. These teachers were from different countries, the UK, Vietnam, and the USA, but all of them are engaged in using peer coaching to teach. These conversations, although these teachers taught a range of subjects, not exclusively personal, social, and health education, involved two interesting aspects that we decided to deliberately focus on and explore further. One was our experiences about teaching about sexual consent within the boundaries of the national curriculums we worked within. And the second was about teaching about sexual consent through peer coaching dance, which just emerged as something that all the teachers in this community were specifically either interested in or engaged with. The outcome in beyond this conference paper is a short paper for teachers, informal, reference light, written with a teacher audience in mind, but very widely distributed via a journal called Collective Ed, which is available to every school in the UK. We discovered through our conversations these shared understandings. The first shared understanding that we discovered is that essentially peer coaching is a method of teaching that requires the teacher to step back and guide students to derive their own answers through attempting to learn a skill or subject together. To some extent, that's an easy thing to agree with and a common understanding of peer coaching. What became slightly richer in the conversations that we had is that it is distinct from a lecture style, quite obviously, but that it's also distinct from conventional teacher-led discussions because all sides of the learning conversation are being led by the students. And it's also distinct from pair share or other similar strategies because of the length of time over which peer coaching is the main form of learning. A further and perhaps deeper leveled shared understanding is that peer coaching involves an ongoing process of negotiation and agreement between the students teaching each other. It therefore, we felt, often within our own teaching, and everyone who is engaged in these conversations is an experienced teacher of teenagers within their own country's secondary system or equivalent. It equally often facilitates the learning of more broadly applicable life skills. In this way, peer coaching works through the illustrative power of lived examples, and therefore is actually, we felt, very powerful as a way to teach about sexual consent through the process of learning to dance. While the concept of consent is very simple and its importance evident, there was agreement within the conversations that we had that somehow conventional desk-based discussion lessons get bogged down. One reason for this is consent is a bigger concept that stretches beyond sexual consent. Another reason is it can be hard to teach didactically, but also that all the teachers involved in these conversations felt it was important that such an important concept is not implicitly up for discussion, which could occur if it's taught within a traditional discussion lesson boundaries. This left teachers in somewhat of a dilemma. And lastly, for this presentation, a shared and interesting teacher story, or several teacher stories that emerged as we talked together, is a perception of those teachers who had used dance to teach consent, that watching students learn or choreograph a dance is watching young people have sophisticated, sensitive, open, honest conversations about consent without perhaps even realizing that they are. In these lessons, the role of the teacher becomes that of monitoring and ensuring the boundaries of these conversations, while the students teach each other through the process of asking, suggesting, answering, and developing in order to find their own solutions. These two projects we have very briefly presented today are in many ways very, very different. One is an action research project involving designing materials and structures around a specific coaching program. The other was simply a reflective conversation to collect data and delve into teachers' experiences. But at the heart of both of these projects are stories of teachers finding ways to disrupt power structures within teaching spaces in order to empower students. The facilitation of peer coaching can be an empowering and engaging way to teach. It involves considerable planning, but at its best, it enables a unique classroom dynamic.